Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a luscious look at late Liszt. How's that for alliteration? Yeah. I said in my talk on classical music's 10 Dirtiest Secrets that Liszt is trash, but I have to confess, I like trash. I like junk food. I like B-rated horror movies. I like all kinds of garbage. So if Liszt is trash, count me in. I think his music's really pretty splendid, actually. Even the completely formally dysfunctional tone poems. You see, the thing about Liszt is that he's conceptually fascinating. He doesn't always realize what his conception is, but sometimes he does, and that's amazing when it happens. And even when it's not, it's sort of a Faustian thing. You know, the point is the struggle, not necessarily the ultimate victory or triumph when you get there. And late Liszt is really, really interesting. It consists largely of relatively brief aphoristic pieces, usually with fairly dismal, spooky, creepy titles. And the music itself is haunting. It's wonderful. It's incredibly advanced harmonically. I mean, it sounds like something that could have been written decades later, except it wasn't. And, most of this stuff was composed in the late 1870s, 1880s, shortly before his death in 1886, I think it was. Yeah, that was it. 1886, his daughter, the lovely, delightful Cosima, was busy working on the first performances of Parsifal while Liszt was, dying of pneumonia, and she couldn't be bothered to, save him or get a doctor or whatever happened, so he died at Bayreuth. And, what a sick bunch of people they all were. It really is. That's a whole nother story. It really is. It really is. They were just awful, awful people. My God. Cosima, Wagner, the whole crew. But as I said, that's another story. We're here to talk about music, and in particular, an absolutely fantastic disc on brilliant classics, so I can play you some excerpts, performed by Liszt virtuoso Michele Campanella. And here it is. Now, Campanella, as some of you might know, he's sort of a Liszt specialist. He did an absolutely amazing set of the complete Hungarian Rhapsodies for Philips. That's my favorite set, even though there are a couple of others. And this particular collection is performed on Liszt's own Bechstein piano. So, there's, in fact, all of the notes here are about the Bechstein piano. There's not a word about the music, which I think is kind of silly, but it's actually a lovely sounding instrument. It has a quite distinctive tone, a little less full than we're used to in our modern sort of Steinways and Bosendorfers and Yamahas and things like that. It has a nice, rich bass and a lovely crystalline treble and a certain softness throughout its registers. It's really very, very lovely and very well suited to this music, I think. I really do, because it gives it the requisite clarity with no want of atmosphere. So let me just tell you what's on the disc, because a lot of this music, we've heard of it. You hear the titles, but no one actually listens to it, or they don't listen to it very often. And these are wonderful, wonderful performances, because Campanella is as good as it gets as a Liszt interpreter. And these are not pieces that make incredible strains on one's virtuosity, more on your concentration and evocative powers and sense of touch and even your musical intelligence, believe it or not, in places. Now, the first work on this disc, which I adore, is the historical Hungarian portraits. This is a 7-minute suite lasting about 30 minutes. It's a very serious work. And each one of them, each movement, is a portrait of a major figure from Hungary's past. And so the music has a Hungarian sound to it. If you know the Hungarian Rhapsodies and that kind of stuff. there's that element, but it's very austere. I mean, these are almost like line drawings in music. They're fascinating. And let me play you a little bit of the first one, which is someone who, of course, I can't pronounce. His name is Stefan Szechenyi, yeah, something like that. Szechenyi with an accent aigu over the E. You go pronounce it, it's okay. But, each one of them is named after a different person. Just listen to this opening. It's quite splendid. It's like a Hungarian rhapsody with all of the glamour stripped away from it. It's amazing. Cool, huh? I mean, there's something really haunting about this music that I find very, very powerful. Now, let's look at the rest of the contents, because there's a bunch of short works and then another larger suite of pieces, which we'll get to in a moment. Next comes Sancta Dorthea, whoever Saint Dorothy was, Dorothea. And then there's the Carrousel de Mme Pellet Narbonne, and then Resignazione, Resignation, and the romance oubliée, which is, one of these wonderful forgotten things. This was a big deal in the late Romantic period. There were songs without words and forgotten romances and, all of this, the music without things. Everything was without something. It was, music without music, a waltz without dancers, a scherzo without humor. I mean, that was very romantic, very, very romantic. Anyway, next is the Toccata, just a Toccata, and then a wonderful work, Schlaflos, exclamation point, which you might call insomnia, exclamation point, and then Frage und Antwort, question and answer. This is a wonderful piece. Let me play you a little bit of insomnia. And it's wonderful how Liszt portrays this. He's using very, very limited thematic material that repeats over and over again, and it sounds trapped over a static harmony in the bass. And so you get this restless sort of roiling, tossing and turning. It's so evocative and so musical at the same time. I mean, it's worth remembering. Liszt was not an idiot. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He may not have always liked it. It may have lacked taste at some point. But here is, I think, an incredibly evocative piece. That's a musical portrait of insomnia. And then it all fades down, and the initial thematic material becomes a question and answer, question and answer. And of course, in vintage romantic fashion, there really is no ultimate answer. Is there? No, there isn't. Then we get en rêve, dreaming, a nocturne. And then in festo transfigurationis Domini, nostri, Jesu Christi. 2 minutes and 33 seconds for that. The title is longer than the piece. Then Recueillement, And finally, at the grave of Richard Wagner, which is very well known and suitably gloomy, and the Nuages gris, gray clouds, which, of course, evokes Debussy's nocturnes, right? The orchestral nocturnes, Nuages, that drifting, quiet, dark, sort of gray. It's wonderfully evocative. And again, it's only 2 minutes and a bit long. These are mostly very short pieces, and they're just distillations of atmosphere and spooky, suspenseful harmony. I mean, that's basically what they are. But the disc concludes magnificently with the 4 Valses oubliées, the forgotten waltzes. And he said, waltzes without dancers. These are forgotten waltzes. I mean, it was going to be a suite. He was going to do the forgotten polkas and the forgotten foxtrots and the forgotten mazurkas and the forgotten charlestons. But he never got that far. He died. Anyway, the forgotten waltzes are 4 pieces. Again, they're substantial. It's about 20 minutes long for the 4 of them. They are incredibly beautiful, I think. Hauntingly evocative pieces that are, again, what's forgotten about them? Well, they all have this kind of half-remembered quality, I suppose. I mean, what do you call it? It's amazing what Liszt is able to capture from the piano. And I think the one I'm going to play, which is number 2, has a particularly wonderful opening that I think sort of showcases the upper register of the Bechstein piano that Campanella is playing extremely well. So let's listen just to the opening of Forgotten Waltz number 2. I think it's very special. I really do. I hope you agree with me. Liszt is one of those composers. He's so hard to get, a grip around because his style is so chameleon-like. It's so advanced. It has so many sort of highs and lows, from the sublime to the ridiculous and back again. It's marvelous. It's really marvelous. But it's hard to get a grip on. I admit that. And so this is a disc which I think really sort of puts him in focus, at least his late music, with works that you probably won't have heard, that you will certainly enjoy getting to know, that will give you music to really think about and ponder. It's great music. It's truly great music. And Michele Campanella on Brilliant Classics does an amazing, amazing job with it. I can't recommend it strongly enough. I just love this disc, and I hope you do too. Take care, folks. Keep on listening. Late Liszt has a lot to offer. Bye-bye.